Moneymakers, I'm Kalila Reynolds and welcome to Taking Stock, where we're bringing you all the latest business news and telling you how it will affect you and your money. And great news, remember last week I told you that we're now on Spotify and Google Podcasts? Well, guess what? We've just been approved for iTunes and Apple Podcasts as well. So if you're a podcast kind of person, head on over and subscribe to Kalila Reynolds Media to listen to Taking Stock and all of our other content. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to my newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com, where you can read episode summaries and transcripts, or watch or listen to all your favorite shows. You can click the link up here or in the description box below. Now come on, let's get this money.
First up, now you can get your food and medicine delivered to your home up until midnight. That's well past curfew, but only if you live in Portmore for now. The pilot phase of the e-commerce national delivery system ENDS has started, with hopes for an island-wide expansion soon. We'll find out more about ENDS from country manager at WiPay Jamaica, Kibwe McGann, and CEO of TECH and Spokesperson for ENDS, Reckord.
A number of businesses and a number of new opportunities around delivery and some sort of e-commerce. All, by the way, while happening cashless.
And later, the analysts weigh in on the latest market developments. Fesco IPO is back out.
Based on where the price is at, it might lure a lot of investors.
Ciboney is back in the news.
Honestly, it's just speculation at this point in a sense, because first are just taking profit and just riding the volatility.
Stressed out Jamaicans are smoking more cigarettes. And on the US markets, toothpaste sales are up. Is the vaccine making people smile more? We'll discuss.
But first, here's What's Hot, brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart.
Fesco's updated prospectus has been released after a month of revisions and minor changes. The initial document was pulled due to an accounting omission in the company's projected financials. The petroleum marketing company aims to raise $400 million from stock market investors in exchange for a 20% stake in the company. The junior market IPO will be on the market from March 31 to April 9. Shares are priced at 80 cents each. Shares in the invitation, totaling 500 million units, are split between newly issued shares in Fesco and existing shares for sale by the 5 founding directors, Trevor Barnes, Hugh Core, Lyndon Trevor Heaven, Errol McGaw, and Junior Williams, as well as another shareholder, Neville Allen. Of the 400 million to be raised, 160 million will go directly to the selling shareholders. The remainder will be used by the company to pursue strategic investment opportunities and reduce debt. Catch our interview with Fesco Chairman Trevor Heaven and CEO Jeremy Barnes at KalilaReynolds.com. You can click the link up top or in the description below. All is set for Salada's 10-to-1 stock split on March 31. Under a stock split, existing stock is divided into multiple shares, making the stock price cheaper and encouraging people to trade more. Shareholders approved 3 resolutions to effect the stock split just over a week ago at the company's first virtual annual general meeting, AGM. Plans for a stock split were announced as far back as February 2020. The approved resolutions see over 103 million ordinary shares being split into over a billion shares. The maximum number of shares entitled to the company has also been increased from 500 million to an unlimited number of ordinary shares. Salada opened the week at $44.40. Meanwhile, Jamaican Teas and QWI Investments are to reconvene their annual general meetings initially scheduled for today, March 30. Physical AGMs and EGMs have again been restricted under the new COVID-19 measures. Meetings can be done fully virtually, with limited exemptions also allowed. Since last year, restrictions have led the Jamaica Stock Exchange JSE to take 2 actions on behalf of some companies to allow them to host virtual or hybrid meetings. Jamaica's Companies Act doesn't allow this. Other companies have gone directly to the Supreme Court to request permission to do so. It's understood the JSE has notified companies of another representative action to be taken to the court due to the rules and new measures. Still on the market, electrical, solar and lighting company Fosrich says it's not ready to approach the equities market for fresh capital to fund its expansion plans. Managing Director Cecil Foster told the Jamaica Observer that all the expansion projects now being rolled out are fully funded. He says the transformer repair business, which started last year, is also being scaled up to contribute between 8 to 9% of increased revenue. In other news, Ireland-based eCurrency Mint Incorporated has been selected as the service provider to test the Bank of Jamaica's digital currency. BOJ says the company will provide support for the pilot between May and December this year in its fintech regulatory sandbox. eCurrency Mint will also be the provider when the National Central Bank Digital Currency CBDC rollout begins early next year. CBDC is a digital currency that will operate alongside notes and coins as legal tender. 20,000 doses of the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine are expected to arrive in the island within 2 weeks. National Health Fund NHF Chairman Howard Mitchell confirmed the delivery recently. The cost was not disclosed, but the Moderna vaccine developed in the United States sells for about $32 per dose. The shipment comes on the heels of the start of Phase 3, the mass blitz phase of the national vaccination program. The government has set aside just over $5 billion to acquire COVID-19 vaccines to inoculate 2 million people by next March. Arrangements are also being made through the private sector.
What's Hot was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers, your best interest at heart. When we come back, we'll take a look at the new quick service delivery system, ENDS. This segment of Taking Stock is brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy, and Massey United Insurance. How good is your insurance?
Government of Jamaica and the private sector have partnered to develop an e-commerce national delivery solution called ENDS. This is to enable business continuity during COVID-19 curfew hours. Any compliant business or vendor or taxi or bikeman or courier will be able to, once approved to operate during curfew hours, get the ENDS platform once qualified. ENDS will allow any business or vendor to connect to and leverage the island-wide network of delivery solutions to have their goods delivered safely and securely. Registering through ENDS is easy, inclusive, and equitable for all Jamaicans. Vendors without websites are able to sign up for free through e-commerce platforms like WeShops and those provided by banks, and is designed especially to ensure that the small man is included and not left out from making online sales during tightened curfew hours. Once the consumer successfully places an order via a card or top-up voucher, a message confirming the order is sent to the vendor and selected delivery company. For example, a pan chicken man in Portmore. Once the pan chicken man confirms the order, he selects the processing button, which changes the order status, triggering an email that is sent to the customer that states that his or her order is now being processed. When an order is placed, the driver will receive a notification that an order has been made. The notification will include directions to the vendor or established business and also directions to the customer. The driver collects the order, showing the pan chicken man proof via his confirmation notification. On arrival, the driver displays his order confirmation to the vendor as proof of payment. Once the driver departs, the vendor then hits delivered on the app, triggering a third update to the consumer, updating them that their order is on the way. In the event that the driver is stopped by the police as part of the driver's registration, that authorized driver would have received a QR code identifier, which will be recognized as his curfew passport. The police will be equipped with a QR code scanning app that will allow them to authenticate the driver's identity and curfew passport validity. The ENDS will ensure that even after curfew, consumers will be able to order essential goods such as food and medicine, while also ensuring that vendors and critical businesses can remain in service. ENDS, e-commerce national delivery solution.
Welcome back to Taking Stock. We have 3 weekend lockdowns to survive, at least 3, including a long Easter curfew. So for those of you who don't cook, you better put up your food. Luckily for people in Portmore though, they can now use the new ENDS platform to order food during the lockdown as late as midnight. Hopefully the rest of us also get this soon too. Joining us now to discuss is Country Manager at WiPay Jamaica, Kibwe McGann, and CEO of TECH and Spokesperson for ENDS, Christopher Reckord. Hi Kibwe, hi Chris, how are you guys doing?
Hi Kalila, hi Kibwe, good to see everybody.
Yes, it's good to have you guys on, and I understand I caught you at a good time, Chris, because you are fresh out of a meeting with the BOJ about ends. So maybe you can give us some type of scoop this morning.
Maybe not.
We'll see. Chris, let me start with you. How did this idea come about?
Thanks, Kalila. The idea came about when the Prime Minister of Jamaica met with leaders of the private sector recently to contemplate ways of, the Prime Minister has been using this term, balancing lives with livelihood. And the problem statement really was put out that, folks, if we have to do more to restrict the movement of the virus, which equates to restricting the movement of people, and how can we find a way to ensure that the economy continues at the same time? And so President of the PSOJ, Keith Duncan, reached out to a number of entrepreneurs. Those included a gentleman by the name of Lauren Peart from a company called Blue Dot, Sheldon Poe from Innovate 10X, so a number of people. Then those folks started pulling in other relationships that they had to ideate around it. And in a sense, the solutions kept being presented at different pieces, but the more parts of the solution it presents, the more questions that pop up. So, for example, the group came up with an idea that, okay, folks, we do have delivery companies already existing, so let us allow the delivery companies to get some sort of a similar status as an essential worker. In other words, so that person could be delivering whether it's pharmaceutical products or food during curfew hours. So that was the idea and the concept. But of course, that creates other problems. And so you brought in other team players. So there's a gentleman by the name of Christopher Gale, who had built up software called Get There. And what Get There does is around a very, very similar like the Uber model, where you are allowed, where the technology allows to track and trace the movement of vehicles. And then, of course, there's a need now. Well, okay, how do I know that all these people that are delivery people are legal? So I have to now find a way to register them. And that is where Kibwe and the WiPay team came in to help build out this registration portal to pull everything in the mix, and thus creating this thing called ENDS, which is the e-commerce national delivery system. So that's the genesis of it, and that's how ENDS came about, and that's why we have a wide cross-section of tech entrepreneurs all just chipping in right now to let's solve a national problem, and let's see if we can actually create this new ecosystem which can facilitate a number of businesses and a number of new opportunities around delivery and some sort of e-commerce, all, by the way, while happening cashless.
Okay, so that's a good place to bring Kibwe back in. Kibwe, tell me about the involvement of your team. How did you guys get involved with this project, and what's the extent of what WiPay is contributing to the platform?
Well, as Chris set it up, we were contacted by Lauren, and he explained the problem. So from a WiPay side, we are a software development company as well. So we would have assisted in building the platform that was able to unload additional vendors, in addition to answering the question of how do we ensure that the platform is secure? How do we ensure that, if the policemen were able to pull over people after curfew or during a lockdown, how could we identify them, that they were actually part of the solution? And then, of course, because WiPay handles online payments, that's where we again came in to assist with vendors who were unbanked, vendors who don't have a site, vendors who weren't part of that digital space. WiPay would have come in and solved that problem by bringing them into the ecosystem through our product called WeShops. And WeShops had a connectivity with WiPay that allowed the vendor to feel confident that, when a driver came and collected their food, that everyone was already paid. So again, we're not pushing cash. This is a completely cashless. So yes, that's where we came in.
And that's a big part of the problem, the not being online. So you're talking about targeting the pan chicken man on the roadside. That person does not have a website. I don't think most of them do, if any of them do. But let me try to understand the concept here, Chris. So how there are existing delivery services. You have your Quick Plate, you have your 7 Crave, there are a few others as well. How is this different from that? Like, why couldn't these people just sign up with one of those services?
All right, so this is not very different from that. However, because the geographic area that was selected for the demonstration was Portmore for many, many reasons, the whole idea and concept was for containment of resources to test the system. When all those folks, when our team reached out to all of those existing delivery vendors, none of them had any platform or any resources on the ground in the Portmore area. So the team said, well, who else could assist in this area? And of course, the idea, as I mentioned earlier, came up to reach out to the taxi operators who knew the area like the back of their hand. And we would try to figure out some way to get them involved in the process and turn them into, what is in North America? You have Uber, they have Uber Eats. So turn them into our version of Uber Eats. So that was the concept. This was never any idea that the government was getting involved to squeeze out the small man. Understand here that this is the problem statement came from the government. Private sector tech entrepreneurs, small, medium, and large, came together, pulled together a lot of different areas of expertise that they have, and then put together the solution and tied it all together, and then handed it back to government to say, here is a solution, here's how we can do it. Of course, we've learned a lot from other situations that have happened before. We've heard about the vulnerabilities exposed in Jam COVID. So we ensured that this was secure from beginning, born secure. So we brought in tech experts around IT security from the very go to test every step of the way as we go along. The reports were handed in the day before yesterday. The team was going through yesterday and all through last night to ensure that all the risks and vulnerabilities that were exposed were in fact brought in. So to tie back to the existing e-commerce folks, there is no intention to block out any existing e-commerce folks. It's just that the existing test area for Portmore didn't have any of them operating. Some of the quick service restaurants reached out to. So just to let you know, we've met with the Jamaica Bankers Association. We've met with the e-commerce. We've met with all the players in quick service restaurants. I had a big meeting with them yesterday. They raised all their concerns. One of them was, hey, I already have a platform that takes orders online and delivery, like Domino's, right? How would I get involved in this? Well, the only thing that you need to do, remember, this was just to solve a problem, which was how do we keep the livelihood whilst in curfew? So this was just a solution around getting movement limited to delivery folks in the curfew. So all those existing systems need to do is just register their drivers and their staff members so they can get what we are now calling our curfew passport to allow them to move during curfew hours. All we're trying to do is to get goods being delivered during curfew whilst people are at home. So we're not changing anything in the system. All we're trying to do is just build a delivery ecosystem. And as the Prime Minister said, we're trying to get a delivery economy going. But we have to change a lot of mindsets because there's a lot of people that are asking a lot of questions around payment. And oh, by the way, another new component is that this must be cashless. So we have to ensure that we speak to the Bank of Jamaica to get to get their view on it and have them ensure that we are in alignment with all the regulations around payment, because this is all cashless. I was part of the test last week Saturday. I ordered chicken last week Saturday and chicken was delivered to my house, and there, no physical money change hands. I put in my credit card number. The back-end system was First Global Bank, a local Jamaican bank here, and that was facilitated by
So let's talk a little bit about how the platform actually works then, because on that note of being a cashless system, there have been concerns that those who are unbanked will be left out. But I did note in that promo video that was done that you can also use a top-up voucher. How does that part work, Kibwe?
So I guess I could answer that. So the top-up voucher would have probably been what Chris would have discussed with the Bank of Jamaica today, because of course there needs to be some regulation around that. So how the top-up system would work is that we're proposing that anybody could literally go to probably several payment vendors, give their money and get virtual money online that they'll be able to spend just as if they had a credit card. So it really is just as simple as you buying digital credit per se and loading it up to your phone, and it becomes cash credit.
So how soon do you expect that element to be ready?
That is dependent upon the BOJ and what Chris's discussion would have probably been about today.
So any update on where those discussions are, Chris?
That is happening with the partners. So Kibwe's on-the-ground partners are in fact First Global Bank. And so, the discussions that happen, the focus right now, Khalida, the easiest way to say it is let's focus on all the approved systems that are going on. The pilot is happening right now, and the process to get any new sort of payment system or any new sort of stored value card system, there's a process around that. Our focus right now is around all the existing approved systems, which includes MyCash, which includes Quisk, which includes any online payment solution that already exists in the system.
So I'm asking about this as well because I'm looking at an article in the Gleaner from Thursday. I don't know if you guys have seen it. Ends could have a rough beginning. Vendors in Portmore question viability of digital delivery platform. And it says that several have expressed reservation about its success. Others just don't have a clue.
With any new system, there's always going to be pushback. We'd have seen that with anything that rolled out tech or digitally, there's always going to be that reservation and that distrust. But one of the things that I think we should walk away from this program with is, as Chris said, we embedded security from the get-go. So we really don't want to have hesitation on that. And a lot of this is going to have to come down to digital literacy. And I know that Chris and his team have already started to engage people on how to, afford that training to those people who don't understand and who aren't as tech savvy. But obviously, once this starts to work and more people come on and the little man can discuss it in the streets and say, yo, boy, this thing really work out. I never had to give the brother cash. A delivery guy just came and pick up my food and I know that money was already in my account. So once that works, we'll catch on like wildfire.
So we're recording this just ahead of the start of the pilot. So unfortunately, we don't have the benefit of hindsight to see how the first weekend has gone. But what type of interest have you been getting? Like, how many people have you signed up for the platform already on both the food service side and the delivery side?
So right now we have a partial list of, and I just finished this presentation with the team. We have a partial list of folks who have expressed interest of, so Burger King, Domino's, Fesco, Juicy Beef, KFC, Little Caesars, Mega Mart Mothers, Pizza Hut, Popeyes. All those have expressed interest, and those are around the approved areas. So we do have
But these guys already have their own platforms. This is not the little guy. They already have delivery service.
Right. So I'm just giving the list of the big guys first. The little guys, because their names are not recognized. It don't make sense to tell you Whole of Vibes, Pan Chicken, and these, but the little guys are coming on slowly but surely. There is fear, uncertainty, and doubt, Kalila. And what happens is that, Kibwe can share with you that even in doing the testing of the system, a number of folks said that they were interested. But of course, once the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is sowed amongst those folks, 4 or 5 chicken men turned down to only 1 ended up being left for the test because people start spreading very shady information, all incorrect information around, government watching your tax, this and that, and none of that is true. It's all false. But sadly, the false narrative carries, and then 5 volunteers drop down to 1 volunteer, right? And so we have people that are interested, and what we're trying to explain to people, a pilot. This is a pilot. We're testing the system. This is not the final end all and be all. This pilot test is supposed to happen for a few weeks, and then everything that is learned will be then rolled into a bigger rollout to say, okay, here are all the fears, here are all the concerns. Let's answer them. Kalila, we've been working, and Kibwe and his team, Lauren Peart. I'll give you a little, talking out of school, talking out of turn. Lauren Peart has been working almost 48 hours nonstop, so much so that he's actually not in Jamaica. He's actually in a hotel in North America somewhere. The hotel manager and the security guard had to come and knock on the door because they haven't seen him. Because he's been using a lot of digital technology, Uber Eats to get food, bar service to order drinks, all online, and a delivery, Instacart to get his groceries. So he's been in his room and said I had to come and check that he's okay. But because he's been working 48 hours nonstop to get this whole product up, every time that someone says, oh, by the way, have you done this? Have you considered this? We have to reach back out to Kibwe and his team to make some changes. We have to reach back out to the other developers to make changes. It's a work in progress. And as I'll use a little statement that one of the ministers said, look, guys, we're working on this. We're trying to all together solve a problem. We have jumped out of the plane and we're building the parachute as we're heading down. Just work with us and help us to just get this parachute open and ready before we hit ground.
So Lauren is like that. I remember at the beginning of this pandemic, he was working with his team, building ventilators, trying to get those out to the hospitals. I don't even know if there's as much reliance on ventilators now. And now he's involved with this project. So kudos to him. Big ups to him. Kibwe, big ups to you guys at WiPay. This is a record, by the way. I've never had one company on Taking Stock 3 times. So you are the guest that has appeared the most on this particular show.
Oh, wow.
Big up Kibwe.
It's because I admire the work that you're doing.
Big up Kibwe.
Thank you.
So tell me some more about WiPay's, what went into developing this platform?
Let me tell you, I really want to think what happened. It was just a timely event because during the pandemic, WiPay has had to step up all across the Caribbean. In fact, one of our first tests in Jamaica was again through Lion Peart and the RAD of Cashless Farmers Market, which was one of our first tests in Jamaica. But we've been doing this straight across the Caribbean. We helped out the government of Guyana. We assisted in Barbados. Of course, we did stuff in Trinidad. So WiPay was basically ready for this event when it positioned itself. So we have a platform called WeShops, which intentionally was built for the unbanked and underbanked because it doesn't require a credit card for a vendor to sign up. That is how come we were able to get the little pan chicken man to jump on, have a website fully functional with e-commerce solution, and as Chris would have led to, plugged in Get There because Get There already had a solution that worked, and from there we were able to quickly accelerate this project and meet the needs of the PSOJ and the government. And of course we didn't do this by ourselves. There was SimTide, there was 10X, TECH, all of the PSOJ tech members came on board and assisted, and together we built a platform that we believe is robust enough to work and will continue to work in the future. Because right now, I think the PSOJ's mandate is let's go digital, and WiPay is a part of that.
So is the app available for download now? It's an app, right?
Yes, it is an app and a website, but that release will come through the governments. All of that communication is where the government is ready. But it will be able to accommodate both app and the desktop.
So there are components of the system that are available and ready right now. And this will be a web-based application for now, where the vendors will go online and register and the delivery folks will go online and register. There's no app download at the time. Now, existing e-commerce players approved by the Bank of Jamaica, already in Jamaica in the system, they all can participate in the system by just going online and registering their various businesses and their various delivery platforms. And an API, application program interface, is provided from the Get There solution for the platform that they have. An existing system is there. They just have to register their people. And it's that simple.
No, but for customers, if
Yes.
I live in Portmore and I want to order food using ENDS, when will I be able to do that?
It is ends.gov.gm.
So will there eventually be an app version?
Those things are all, we're building the parachute. We're building the parachute.
Unfortunately, we lost Kibwe, but I think that's a good place to leave the discussion. I look forward to seeing where this takes us and what level of how many people actually sign up for the platform, because this was designed with the small man in mind. And so I hope that skepticism eventually dissipates if that one who participated in your pilot had a good experience and shares the news with his or her friends and they end up participating as well. And then on the taxi side, on the delivery side, have you had similar issues, Chris?
The concerns, well, interestingly enough, the participants on the test included taxi operators, the police, the municipality, the vendor, and the acceptance was pretty easy because for them, it's an opportunity to actually continue to earn a living during curfew. So it was readily accepted. Yes, there's the technology pushback and concern, because some folks really and truly, they don't have a smartphone, or the smartphone that they have is very old and it's slow. And so we are trying to work out some of those things to ensure that there is as smooth as possible test during this pilot time.
Can existing delivery services also register through ENDS?
Yes, existing delivery services can register. It's just that for the geographic area, none of them had any resources on the ground in any of those areas at all. So we had to turn to another source, which is why we ended up with talking to taxi people and local deliveries within those areas. None of the big guys had anything. Now that this thing is now public, everyone is very interested, because what they're trying to prepare for, okay, when the pilot is done and it is in Kingston, will I be ready? And yes, people can, in fact, be a part of it.
What's your target for having this rolled out nationally?
We are very cautious in setting a target date. The minister said, let us give the pilot up to 3 weeks to learn and iron out all the kinks. But it is said that, hey, if we have an amazing success after week 1, then we will start to see what's needed, what's necessary for further rollout. Because it really and truly takes in discussions with municipalities and local government in every part of the country first. And all that is happening. We spent a lot of time with the Portmore municipality and all of the various stakeholders there over the last 2 weeks. And so we're learning from that to see how can we package that up, put that in training manuals, and now roll it out slowly. So I'm not able to give a date for a national rollout at this time, but there is great interest.
Well, I look forward to future updates. Chris, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Khalil. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Up next, we've got your market recap, and the analysts are standing by. This segment of Taking Stock was brought to you by Bulwark Insurance Agency, insurance made easy, and Massey United Insurance. How good is your insurance?
Time now for your market recap, brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments. The Jamaica Stock Exchange advanced, with the combined index gaining less than 1%. 105 stocks traded across both the main and junior markets of the JSE for the week ending Friday, March 26, 2021. 54 advanced, 42 declined, and 9 stayed the same. Nearly 191 million shares changed hands on the Jamaican dollar market, totaling nearly $844 million. Radio Jamaica traded the most, taking up nearly 50% of market volume. The stock lost 4 cents to open the week at $1.46. The lab traded at the second highest, with people buying and selling nearly 15 million shares in the company. The stock lost 10 cents to open this week at $2.70. And Trans-Jamaican Highway rounded out the most traded, taking up 5% of market volume. The stock gained 3 cents to close last week at $1.38. Now let's see who had the biggest gains. Knutsford Express Services rose 18% to close last week at $6.35. JMMB Group 7.25%, VRJMDCR preference shares came in second for last week's biggest gains, with its stock rising 16%. The stock opens this new week at $1.43. And rounding off the biggest gains, 138 Student Living Jamaica variable preference stock, which advanced nearly 15% to open this week at $4.32. On the losing side now, Ciboney Group stock fell again to close last week at 60 cents. Margaritaville Turks stock fell 19% last week, down to $35. Rounding off the biggest losers, Caribbean Assurance Brokers, which lost nearly 13% to open this week at $1.91. Market recap was brought to you by Sagicor Investments. Think wealth, think Sagicor Investments.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, is brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers and Proven Wealth. Welcome back to Taking Stock. I've got a team of analysts to examine the week in business. I'm joined by investment analyst at Proven Wealth, Julian Morrison, and business writer at the Jamaica Observer, David Rose. Hey, David. Hey, Julian. We're just waiting on Clive. Hopefully he's able to join us.
Hi, Khalil.
Morning, Khalil. Hello, Khalil.
So what on earth is going on with Ciboney again? On the last episode of Taking Stock in Market Recap, we saw that it was back up to 90 cents. It was at 30, climbed back up to 90. And then in the past few days, we've seen some volatility where it's fallen, it's back up. What on earth is going on with investors, David? I hear you have the scoop. You've been following it. What's going on?
Honestly, it's just speculation at this point in a sense, because first I just taking profit and just riding the volatility. Because at the AGM, I think it was last week, Ciboney's principal said, hey, we don't know about any sale right now. But I'm not sure if they can actually disclose that it's a potential sale, potentially because of NDAs in place. And the persons were asking several questions, many new investors, and the principal of Ciboney said, here, but you're left worth of cash. So Ciboney has about like $6 million worth of cash at the end of November 2020. And only about a year worth of cash, Ciboney brings about $1 million every quarter. And if they don't get a buyer by that period, then they'd have to basically delist, because the company will just stop operating in a sense. So I'm not really sure. It's just volatility and just, in a sense, speculation to make money, because Ciboney fell from 90 cents on Friday, come down to like around probably 40 cents, went back up to 72 cents today, and it just halts for the entire day, because so the JS has a 15% circuit breaker, and I stock can't pass 30% in a given day right now. As Ciboney opens on the market, it's up 32%. It's opened, it's done 30%. So it's literally just a one a day stock at this point. And the JC Armory department was there watching the AGM. It's interesting, but there's no.
What department was watching?
The Regulatory Market and Oversight Division. They're basically the oversight entity that actually monitors the rules and interest companies are in compliance with the JSE rules as well. They're independent of the JSE company itself.
So the regulators were making sure that they watch like a hawk. You cover AGMs quite frequently. Have you ever seen that before? At least that level of oversight?
No. The last time I've actually seen the RMOD present at an AGM was for the Blue Power AGM in 2019, and that was during the lumber depot split, and only the chief regulatory officer was there, not the entire department.
So what does that say to you?
It's only 4 persons in the department, so if all 4 show up, that's pretty interesting. But it says that there's some insight by the JSC right into the whole Ciboney matter, because some persons have made a good amount of money, a lot of persons have gotten burned at the same time, because some persons bought for around $2 something, and they're back around 70 cents now. So it's a pretty interesting debacle.
What level of interest, apart from the JSC's regulatory department, what level of interest was there in the Ciboney AGM? So did they have a lot of participants, a lot of investors coming to see what's going on?
About 50 plus investors, and the thing is, Ciboney has never had that kind of attention, probably in their last AGM in 2018. So to see this level of attendance in this virtual format is pretty interesting.
So the other big thing on the market this week, Fesco is back, and their IPO now opens on the 31st of March. So it took them a little while. You know how the regulators are. They have to read back through the whole prospectus, even if there's one change that you have to make, just to ensure that everything is how it ought to be. So what are your early thoughts on Fesco, Julian?
Well, based on where the price is at, it might lure a lot of investors, because we realize that our investors are very big on pricing. And the fact of the matter is, whenever a stock is typically at that level, it tends to get a very high level of uptake. What's also important is the fact that NCB Capital Markets has a very strong infrastructure in terms of bringing deals to the market. So it's very likely that the uptake should be notable. Clearly, we don't know whether or not it will be oversubscribed, because that is just pure speculation. But as we can see, based on market movements, there's a very high level of demand. There's a very high level of liquidity in terms of people waiting for deals to come to the market, things that were postponed from last year, etc. So we're expecting a very high level of demand generally behind that deal. In terms of the company, well, it would be a very interesting opportunity for people to get exposure to energy, because energy as a sector is fairly underrepresented on the exchange. Yes, you can buy JPS preference shares, and then there's Wigton and then there's MPC, but it's good to have another energy offering on the market for diversification purposes. Beyond that, I think the numbers are decent. The margins are a bit thin in terms of the profit margins. However, there are different strokes for different folks. There are some people who still might be willing to take that risk and jump in. So it's all a matter of assessing the risk to reward for the individual investor and what their priority is.
And it is a junior market listings. It's a fairly small offering. Chances are, and I know you said speculation whether it will be oversubscribed, but chances are it's going to be an open and shut IPO. What are your thoughts, David?
Well, you have to actually notice that if you check the actual dates or the timeline for the IPO, for the IPO and the offer for sale, it's only open from March 31 to April 9. And if it wasn't for the holiday period, it would just be open for technically 1 week. So the last IPO NCB capital market Reckord, which was Tropical Battery, they also, limited it to 1 week in terms of open and closing. And it's open in one day and closed the same day, and by the following week it was listed. So the fact that NCB has kept that similar timeline with only about $147 million open to the public in terms of shares, it might get oversubscribed pretty quickly because NCB has their reserve pool as well, and it has garnered potential interest. It's just to see when investors still have that vigor for Fesco, because we saw the fact that Alliance Financial went away, and Fesco came, made one correction, and you don't know what investors have done in the meantime, because remember, Fesco came before even the JMME preference share offer, which got in about $10 billion. So for it actually, Fesco to come back now, you don't know, even though there's equity in the market, is there a take-up from the public going to be sufficient for them right now? As Julian says, it's a low margin business, as I said, quick sale, low profit, but the company, isn't necessarily exposed right now to certain risks. So they don't necessarily own all the gas stations. They're only going to be their first gas station right now, which is going to be Beachwood Avenue. The rest of the locations are dealer owned, meaning that somebody else owns the location, but Fesco is the brand on the gas station basically. And the company, did about $70 million in profit, and they're projecting they're going to finish 2021 at $132 million, which is pretty interesting since their first prospectus, they said they underrepresented profits. So to say from 9 months, December, 70 million to go to 132, which is about $50 million, almost, call it about 80% of the 9 months results as profit just in 1 quarter, says that they're potentially very bullish. And the fact that they say they're potentially going for $400 million in 5 years for net profit and $1 billion plus cash is a good sign.
Okay, in terms of Fesco's future, we have to keep a close eye on it because many large manufacturers are actually pivoting to electronic vehicles, whether it is through a full-on shift to EV infrastructure or a matter of having a hybrid, meaning the type of energy that the cars will be using. Is it that Fesco will be retooling their infrastructure to fuel these cars going forward? And many times we think that these things are far out in the future, but several large manufacturers like Toyota, VW Group, etc., even Land Rover, they have made plans to switch to EV by 2030 or even 2025. So that timeline is fairly short for a retooling exercise. So we have to keep a close eye on that in terms of the company's future prospects.
That's an interesting point. I didn't even think of asking them that when I had them on.
And here's another thing, Kalila. Mailpack actually roll out their own electronic vehicles recently. Actually support their delivery
rolled out
system.
electronic vehicles?
Mailpack.
Mailpack, oh.
Yes, so they're actually putting out these small electric vehicles to support their delivery fleet. So instead of having these large vehicles which consume gas and so on, which went for 15 straight weeks in Jamaica, they're going to use electronic vehicles, which probably carry a relatively lower cost for the company to operate. So that's, as Julian mentioned, we're going to see a significant shift in energy in the next couple of years.
Interesting indeed. I wish I had raised that point with them. And guys, you can watch my interview with Fesco by clicking the link. Hope I'm pointing to the right side, by clicking the link up here. over here, wherever it is, if you haven't already. So I interviewed the principals of Fesco about that IPO and about the prospects for the company, so you can determine whether this might be a good investment for you. Let's look at some market reports now. So earnings results are out for Carreras. What are the highlights, David?
Well, Carreras, recovered remarkably. So Carreras, for the for the first quarter, it suffered a decline in profits. But as the time progressed for the year, you realize that the company made back up on its ground. So right now in the 9 months, they're at about $2.5 billion in net profit, compared to about $2.4 billion in the prior 9 months. So you've seen that recovery, that steady recovery in Carreras' profits from a combination of, lowering expenses while having a marginal decline in sales. So remember that Carreras only distributes cigarettes to the entities that sell them to regular persons. When you check even their sister company in Trinidad, which actually manufactures the cigarettes, West Indies Tobacco, same story. Slightly declining profits, slightly declining sales, but overall, coming down to the game plan, profits just beat each and every quarter. So it shows that you've seen a significant increase in the amount of cigarette sales or consumption by consumers, especially in this time where you're seeing increased stress from everything in the environment. Because even their parent company...
That's what I was just about to point out. People probably stress out, man.
It's not unique.
Yeah.
I was going to say not unique to even Carreras, because SBL also saw a boost in sales after, that quarter with COVID, which was quarter 2.
Probably the rum companies as well. I wouldn't be surprised.
No, not necessarily. The rum companies might be making an alternative turn when it comes on to providing alcohol for the market to sanitize. But the drinking alcohol per se sales are
because they don't have the entertainment, so they make
Correct.
a lot of money when people go out to the bars, and they don't have that anymore.
Correct.
But probably personal consumption at home might be up. I don't know. We don't have those numbers.
No, it's up. It's up on the different metrics on different markets, but
we
don't have a general guidance here in Jamaica to gauge it, because the parent company said that sales in Jamaica, profits in Jamaica went down overall because everything is basically the bars.
The parent company for who?
For Ray and Nephew. That would be Heineken, I believe that's in the UK. They actually report their subsidiary results, and no, it's Diageo, sorry. And they said that Jamaica's segments results went down, and I think with the impairment charge as well, and the company actually shut down Sugar Factory. So even though I said cigarette sales and gambling in a sense have gone up, it's not necessarily correlated directly for even drinking sales. And even the parent company in the UK, for Carreras and West Indies Tobacco, which is British American Tobacco Company, reported a 0.4% decline in sales across all of the world. Because they own most of the companies in the world, right? And they reported £6.5 billion in profit, which was up 12%. To put that into context, that's about 1.3 trillion Jamaican dollars. NSB financial goods and assets is at $1.8 trillion. So that's just to give a context of the fact that everybody's stuck at home, stressed, but you gotta find advice to take out that stress.
So Julian, I know that you like to watch the international markets. What are you eyeing this week?
So I picked up some insights on Colgate Palmolive. Pretty much it's a stable company, it's well established, especially in the personal care space. It has a very small pet nutrition business. However, the drivers continue to be personal care products. So the earnings are actually up about 14% to 2.7 billion, and this is as at their full year ended December 2020. However, revenue is up only 5% to 16.47 billion. Now, one might say, how is it that revenue only moved 5%, but earnings moved by such a large amount? The thing is that their cost of sales were flat. So that essentially is tied to their inventory. So when companies manage their inventory very tightly, or when they're able to manage their inventory, it means that they can keep their cost of sales stable, and that is a fairly large number. So it will cause gross profits to jump, which will typically feed down into the bottom line. So that's very important in terms of inventory management, especially in a pandemic where supply chains are under threat. Now, the other good thing is that operating cash flows are up 18.7% to 3.72 billion. So it's good that operating cash flows are growing in line or at a greater pace than earnings, because it shows the quality of earnings, not just the quantity of earnings or profits. Right now, the PE is about 24.86 times versus its historical level of 24.37 times. So it means that it's in line with where it has been for about 3 years in terms of the valuation. The dividend yield is about 2.4%, and it's actually down about 10.7% from its 52-week high. So it's something worth considering. It's traded on the New York Stock Exchange in the neighborhood of $78. They have a very big business in Europe, which has done very well in terms of sales during the pandemic, even though there's all that fallout in the European market from other areas. They've also done well in North America. And as I said, the leading business line is definitely the personal care products, so toothpaste and other hygiene products. And many people would have been at home, so people would have been able to buy those products in larger volumes because they're at home for a longer period, especially because many people would have done homeschooling and the kids are also at home, which would drive demand for those products.
Yeah, and make sure you brush your teeth after every meal now, especially since you're home, you have no excuse.
No more cheating.
No more cheating.
One more thing to add, Kalila. So I'm actually going to mention the fact the current crisis at the Suez Canal, where a Japanese container ship has basically been stuck for the last couple of days, which is expected to further disrupt supply chains for several products. So that's actually a pretty interesting development right now. A Japanese ship, is stuck. So other ships that want to come into port can't come in because the passageway is basically blocked. So you're going to see further disruption in supply chains. And since the year has started, or I should say within the last couple of months, several companies have said that, hey, shipping costs have risen like crazy. And actually leads to the price of steel, lumber, and so on. Even last year said, manufacturing that or shipping costs went up by 300%. So right now, we have to be really observant of what's going on in the global supply chain markets, because disruption even shipping for different goods, it does translate to different costs back to the end consumer later on. And we're seeing it through different means and methods right now.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks, Julian.
All right, Kalila, thanks so much.
This segment of Taking Stock, The Analysts, was brought to you by Jamaica Money Market Brokers and Proven Wealth. That's our show for this week. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share with a friend. Also subscribe to our newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com and turn on those post notifications so that you can be the first to see all my other features. We want to help people learn more about money so we can all get this money together. This week on Money Mondays JA, we're looking at the 1-year anniversary of COVID in Jamaica. Much has changed, hasn't it? And on Money Moves JA, there's $5 billion in the government's new budget for entrepreneurs. Find out how you can benefit. Reminding you as well to check out my interview with the principals of Fesco. Their IPO opens on March 31. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Kalila Ray, and follow at Taking Stock JA on Instagram. If you want to connect with the analysts this week, check the description box below for their contact information. Also visit our website, KalilaReynolds.com, for financial information you can use however you like it. Watch, listen, or read. Now tell a friend about Taking Stock. Investing is the new sexy, so let's make it cool to talk about money. I'm Kalila Reynolds. Stay safe.
Let's get this money.